like to ask Pastor Franklin D. Hallett, Glenwood Community Church, to come forward and bring us our invocation. And after the invocation, if everybody will remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members and residents of Virginia Beach. Let's join our hearts together in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, in your divine wisdom, you fated that your people be governed by responsible governing authorities. And Father, you have given them broad powers. And Father, you ask them to just govern their people as you would have us to be governed. And Father, in response to that, we as the governed would give the support that our leaders need. And Father, we believe that we have that in Virginia Beach here. Father, on our city council are people from various backgrounds. And it was a wonderful thing to see them come together in unity in some important matters recently. And Father, that's the way that you designed for government and a city to work together. And Father, as we have looked at the city ourselves and have watched the studies of many people across our nation, they often hold up Virginia Beach as a model city. A city that is responsive to the needs of their people and the people who take seriously their responsibilities of seeing that the government does what it needs to be doing. So, Father, we ask your blessings upon them in all of their deliberations. Each new council meeting, they have to turn a new page and look at the way that they can best serve every citizen of this city. And, Father, we pray that every neighborhood would be served like all neighborhoods, that every school be treated and made safe as every school in our city. Father, continue to uphold this city, and I'm glad that I'm a resident to be a part of Virginia Beach. So, Father, we ask your divine wisdom upon each of them. May they always yield to you and your will as they govern this city. We're thankful for their gifts. We're thankful for their calling to serve us. And, Father, it's in your will that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for coming and being with us. You have the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. All members of council present.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the informal and formal session minutes of May the 15th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any corrections or comments? If not, the vote is open.
By a vote of 9-0 with Mr. Ernest abstaining, you've approved the minutes as submitted.
We have two presentations, and I'm going to do the first one is the Tidewater Builders Association Scholarship Foundation, where students will receive certificates, and we have our friends Fred Napolitano II, Scholarship Foundation Chairman of TBA, John Oliveri, past president, and Mrs. Maureen Oliveri here this evening. If they would come forward, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 53rd year that the Tidewater Builders Association Scholarship Foundation has helped high school graduates continue to college. The foundation was created in 1965 when several generous leaders in the building industry decided that they wanted to give back to their community. For years, money for the foundation has been raised through the proceeds from scholarship houses and scholarship apartments. Several members have also personally endowed scholarships that are given annually in their name. Since 1965, in Virginia Beach alone, Tidewater Builders Association has awarded $833,800 to 244 students. Joining us tonight is, as I said, is Fred Napolitano II, the past TBA president and chair of the TBA Scholarship Foundation, along with the past president, John Oliveri, and his mother, Maureen Oliveri. A selection committee made up of TBA members reviewed the 131 applications that were submitted, looking for students who excel academically as well as demonstrate a strong commitment to their community. I'd like to present the following 5,000 academic awards. First, to William Greer of Oceana Lakes High School, who received the Lee A. Gifford Memorial Scholarship. He plans to attend Georgetown University and major in international politics. I understand that Will is not able to attend tonight's function due to a prior commitment with his school. However, we do have the other recipients with us, and our TBA friends are going to help us in presenting the certificates to them this evening. The next recipient is Marielle Hankerson of Princess Anne High School, who received the William J. Herring Memorial Scholarship. She plans to study sciences and humanities at Virginia Commonwealth University. Our next student is the first recipient of the Richard E. Oliveri Memorial Scholarship, which was established in honor of developer Richard Oliveri of Pembroke Commercial Realty, who passed away last December. His son John and widow Maureen are here with us this evening, are joining us as we recognize Sophia Phillips of Princess Anne High School. She plans to study neuroscience at Virginia Tech.
Oh.
The TBA Foundation also conducts a Young Designer Scholarship competition where students enter their architectural drawings to be judged by a panel of design professionals. Since the design contest was started in 1982, 117 Virginia Beach students have been winners, receiving $121,800 in scholarship money, with Virginia Beach schools receiving $32,500 in grant and award money. The 2018 competition winners and their awards are Zoe Quinones of Kempsville High School, $1,500 first place. The next winner is Kenneth Hicks of Advanced Technology Center, Kellam High School, $1,200 second place. The next winner is Chet Wiltshire of Ocean Lakes High School, $800 third place.
Nice. And the next winner is Benjamin Sturkey of Advanced Technology Center, Tallwood High School, $500, honorable mention. Instructor Jennifer Renee of Lansdowne High School, Virginia Beach, won a $500 school grant to assist her drafting program with necessary supplies and equipment. Is she here?
Yes.
No? Okay. Well, congratulations to all of the winners, and thank you also very much for being here this evening. Would you like to make a comment?
Just thank you very much. We, of the winners, a good majority of them were from our Virginia Beach schools. And it's a program that, as the mayor said, has been in existence since the 60s. And it just goes to show the strength of our Virginia Beach school systems. And thank you all very much for the time this evening.
Thank you for all you do. The next presentation is the GFOA Excellence in Financial Reporting presentation, and Patty Phillips, our Director of Finance, is here this evening. Patty?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is a very high form of recognition in governmental accounting, financial reporting, and we kind of like to think about full disclosure when we print this annual report for the city. It is the 37th year the city has received this, 37th consecutive year we've received it. Two of the staff members who worked on this, Don Barnett and Kevin Kilbasa, are here, but it's really a team effort by a lot of people. So thank you for this recognition.
Thank you, Patty, for the great job you and your team did. Next, we'll go to the public hearings. The first declare a public hearing on the acquisition of agricultural lands preservation ARP easement 1812 Indian River Road. Any speakers?
No, sir, no speakers.
Okay. Next, I'll declare a public hearing on deed restrictions to be excess city property, 296 Kings Grant Road. Any
No speakers, sir.
No speakers. Thank you. We'll now go to the consent agenda. Vice Mayor Wood.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for the following items for approval under the consent agenda. Under ordinance and resolutions, item J1, ordinance to amend City Code Section 28-9 regarding sewer cleanouts. Item J3, ordinance to amend the Town Center Special Service District to add facilities and services regarding limited delegation of responsibilities and use of Special Service District levies, noting that Mr. Moss and Ms. Abbott are voting no. Item J4, resolution authorizing an agreement between the city and the Central Business District regarding recreation and cultural events in the Town Center area. Item J5, for indefinite deferral, ordinance to authorize the acquisition of agricultural land preservation ARP easement from My Three Sons LLC at 1812 Indian River Road. Item J6, ordinance to authorize and release, or also authorize the release of certain city-held deed restrictions on the property located at 296 Kings Grant Road. Item J10, ordinance to authorize and direct the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement for the contribution of funds to the Department of the Army regarding Sandbridge Beach Nourishment. Item J11, ordinance to authorize and direct the city manager to execute a deed of release and exchange pertaining to an agricultural lands preservation ARP easement located on land of Kelly Suzanne Vaughn, Rebecca V. and James T. Albert, and Mark E. Vaughn. Under item 12, ordinance to appropriate $279,000 in local revenues to the FY 2017-18 Department of Finance operating budget regarding the STOP program. Item J13, ordinance to accept and appropriate $2,500 to Parks and Recreation regarding cigarette litter prevention program at Little Island Park. Item B, $36,305 to Emergency Medical Services regarding support rescue squad operations and training. Item 13C, $50,000 to Housing and Neighbor Preservation regarding residential design professional services.
Declare a public hearing on planning.
Item K1, Willis Family Partnership for a change of nonconformity regarding reduction of 10 legally conforming units at 318 and 320 34th Street, Beach District. Item K2, also in the Beach District, Evergreen, Virginia LLC for modification of conditions regarding motor vehicle sales, rentals, repair, and car wash at 296 Kings Grant Road and 2981, 3001, 3025, and 3033 Virginia Beach Boulevard. Under item K3 for consent for withdrawal, SXCW Properties 2 LLC for conditional use permit for a car wash and automobile service station at 3264 Holland Road. And so moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, Mr.
Were we deferring item 5 to our next formal meeting, the one we deferred?
It was an indefinite.
Indefinite deferral?
Indefinite
Okay, just
deferral.
making sure. Thank you, sorry.
All right. The vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood.
All right.
J2.
The first item under ordinances is item 2, which is an item, a resolution to rescind the authorization of the city manager to seek transportation partnership opportunity fund grants from the Atlantic Avenue Reef Configuration project. I would like to remind everyone that the city council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items and items where a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Are there any speakers on?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll be abstaining on this item, and I'll go ahead and step out during the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Ern. Are there any speakers on item 3, Madam Clerk?
2.
Yes, sir.
Which one is that? I thought it was on Atlantic Avenue, I'm sorry. Which one is
I'm,
it? It is. Okay, sorry.
the first speaker is Janet Zaritsky.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Janet Zaritsky. I live at the Oceans at 4004 Atlantic Avenue, and I am here tonight to explain to you that we are a group of 224 owners living in the one block that is the most impacted by the potential realignment of Atlantic Avenue. If you read social media, you know that it's all about the players. For us, it's not all about the players. It's about our way of life, how we get into our building, how we get out of our building, whether the fire trucks can come if we need a rescue. You all approved the complex at the Cavalier, 540 hotel rooms in 3 hotels, and each hotel has several restaurants. You approved 23,000 square feet of convention space. You approved a beach club, which can sell memberships. You had to know that by inviting thousands of guests to the north end, Atlantic Avenue would change. You had to know that the quiet family neighborhoods would be impacted. You had to know that there would be political and financial cost for these projects. You had to know. The 23,000 square foot convention center can host 2,000 or more participants on a given event. An Uber or a car will require them to get there. 540 hotel rooms, each probably represents another vehicle, whether it's hired or a private. Hundreds of employees in 3 hotels in the convention center, dining, housekeeping, building maintenance, grounds maintenance, service personnel, delivery of food and beverages, linens, office supplies. At the very minimum, there will be at least once a day trash collection, but probably more often. Where will all that traffic go? It will go right in front of our building if Atlantic Avenue is left open. I'd like to invite all of you to come out there and see what it is. Don't go to Google Earth because that doesn't give you a fair representation of what the situation is. If Atlantic Avenue is left open, we will have delivery trucks, cars constantly in front of our building going both directions. I just ask that you take the players out of the mix and put the practicality of what we're doing in. Thank you.
Ma'am, so just to clarify, so you want the avenue closed, is that correct?
I would like to see Atlantic Avenue realigned into a cul-de-sac formation for the safety of our building. If we have gridlock going in both directions, the fire trucks can't get to us. Our building is built in 1974. We don't have fire suppression systems. Therefore, the 21 stories, the fire trucks have to get to all 4 sides of our building in order to fight a fire.
Thank you.
Barbara Messner, and after Ms. Messner is Diana Howard.
Can I ask who's sitting in for the city attorneys? I'm not familiar with you.
I'm Deputy City Attorney Rebecca Kubin.
Okay, thank you. The firemen on this issue, the firemen should never have approved this project in the first place. It's 3 hotels. And you should know from 31st Street that Thompson and his partners always want parking out front for their special vehicles. The road shouldn't be closed. It's a public road. There was already a lawsuit, and I thought this was just, the resolution proposed by Moss and Abbott. The timing is just kind of unusual, since you're running for election, Mr. Moss. Because normally, there's never even a second to a resolution, let alone people voting, for, whatever the resolutions are. If you do it, which I doubt you will, since you already have a speaker who's in favor of it, is this temporary until after the elections, or will it be permanent if you leave the road open? Moss and Abbott, you've ignored the request for almost 2 years to return the $78 million. It was asked that you do a resolution so everyone would be forced to vote on returning your money. I was also told that this, tied in with the city manager's job. The city manager, Mr. Hanson, as much as I'm frustrated with you, you do what the city council wants you to do. You're highly paid to do what they ask you to do. Okay, thank you. I'm not in favor of closing and realigning Atlantic Avenue. Thank you.
Diana Howard.
Good evening, everyone. I don't see how closing off that road is going to allow free access for fire department to get in and out of there. I don't see how the fire department can get in and out of where those houses are at the Cavalier anyway. I don't think they can even park their own cars there unless they have little golf carts, right? But using our transportation funds, whether it's state or local, for the benefit of providing valet parking to dead end that street for Bruce Thompson is just insane. We are not his slush fund. Please rescind it. Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
All right. May I have a motion?
Yes, but some discussion first. I think it's important. The resolution does not modify the current capital improvement program that we just adopted on the 15th of May. That is the project that specifies the terms and conditions of getting the funding for the project as in the CIP. But this council, both in the year before last and this year's CIP, we have consciously chose and made a decision that we are not willing, as a body, to use local funds to make the improvements to close Atlantic Avenue. The language of the CIP authorizes the city manager to pursue grants. This resolution only deals specifically with pursuing a specific type of grant for which the Virginia Department of Transportation has previously rejected, with their reasoning being, this is the Transportation Partnership Opportunity Fund grant, then Secretary of Transportation, now Secretary of Finance, Aubrey Lane said, and very quickly, in effect paraphrasing, why should the state be funding something for which the local government doesn't hold as a high enough priority to fund itself? this resolution says it is rather foolish, in effect, to go back and ask the same body that has previously rejected a grant request for the very same project when the only thing that's changed is the price from $2.5 million to roughly $2.9 million. And I think sometimes you have to ask yourself, when you are putting other applications before the Commonwealth for funding, you can lose credibility by saying, why are you asking again when nothing has changed? Now, I'm certain that Aubrey Lane is a big enough person that he would not hold us against us the fact that he was less than pleasantly characterized in the past by the city manager. I think he's big enough to put that behind him. But you may remember what he said. I understand my fiduciary responsibility. He has a fiduciary responsibility to all the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So ask yourself, if you were in Scranton, or you were in Charlottesville, or you were from some of these other places, and say, you know, Virginia Beach, AAA bond rating, $100-something million in surplus, all sorts of road projects that we funded, but yet we consciously chose not to fund this with local money. That was a conscious, deliberate discussion and vote, but yet we're coming back again and asking that citizens across the state should give us $2.9 million. I think to maintain your own credibility on other road projects, that should be rescinded. This doesn't say they can't apply for other grants. It doesn't say you can't apply for a federal highway grant. You can't, it just says the specific grant for which we previously made an application, for which there is no material change in fact, except price, that we not apply again and that we withdraw that application so as not, it's an embarrassing in fact, and more importantly, when someone asks, well, why are we doing it just now? And that is a forever restriction, because when the grant was made back on March 9th of 2018, City Council was not a copy to on the letter that filed the application. I only found out about it through a newspaper reporter, which is often the case. But, so you can't act until you know. And I'm just saying, think about yourself and your own business. You went in and put it up, and you go back and ask the person again, but nothing's changed. Why did we expend the energy to do that? Why didn't we put that energy and ask for something that we haven't asked for before, where we have a competitive chance? The reasoning was pretty solid when you look at what he actually says. And this was a quote, remains, referring to Aubrey Lane, then Secretary of Transportation, remained concerned by the public remarks made by the city manager, this back in March of 2017, and the city council members indicating that the project does not merit city funds for the road, close quote. So this is just trying to establish a sense of sanity to the applications that we file. And the sole purpose is a very narrow scope that does not redefine the CIP, does not prohibit other grants being requested. It just says this specific grant should be withdrawn, and we should not subsequently file again for a grant that has been rejected by the state with very specific reasoning that has not changed.
Mr. Dyer.
Yeah, I guess my heartburn with this is not based on finances, but practicality. I've spoken to some folks that have adjacent businesses in that area that have expressed some major concerns about the potential impact of what this may have on them and their businesses. And I guess the concern is the law of unintended consequences. While this may be a well-intentioned, endeavor, in reality, I don't think it has the potential not to live up to it. And, it's going to be rough putting the genie back into the bottle, once we go ahead and approve this. So, I think I'm going to, be very skeptical about this application.
Mr. Davenport, did you have something to say?
Has a motion been made yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, very good. I move its adoption.
I second.
But now that I've said that, I have the floor to make a discussion, because I made a motion, I have a chance to discuss. I think when people say no to this, then the people that say no to this should come forward and have a modification to the existing CIP, because you can't on one hand say, this is so important, I'm concerned with unintended consequences, but yet I'm not willing to stand up and vote $2 million for Bruce Ponton's private driveway, and at the same token say, well, when the state tells us no, which I anticipate will be the answer from intel that I have, we're right back where we started. There's no closed Atlantic Avenue. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. So you either got to be on ponying up the local money or saying that you're going to, this isn't the right angle. But, well, I suspect that's what we'll be, is it'll continue to be a place marker with no funding in the CIP, and nothing will move forward.
Mr. Davenport.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to deny this. I believe this is purely a public safety issue. The stacking and gridlock this would create on Atlantic would be a nuisance for the retail owners down there, as well as the residents of the condominiums in the area. And so I would make a substitute motion to deny.
Second.
Motion's been made, substitute motion. We'll vote on the substitute motion first. Any discussion?
Yes, there
on
is.
the substitute motion?
If we are making the assertion of public safety, I look forward, since obviously no member of this council wants to be against public safety, and we'll have all the documentation that establishes that, I'm certain we'll see a resolution coming forth soon appropriating the $2 million and identifying the offset. Heaven forbid we put citizens at risk. I look forward to seeing that resolution. Thank you.
The substitute motion is to deny the resolution. Vote is open.
By a vote of 6-3, you have approved the motion to deny the application.
The next item is item 7, is the ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2018-19 Department of Housing and Neighborhood Preservation operating budget rate adjustments and federal spending. I understand we have a speaker, Madam Clerk.
Barbara Messner.
Amazing how in an election year, everybody comes to their senses. Mr. Moss and Mr. Dyer, where was your outrage on education money, public-private education money going on the arena for 4 years? Y'all pushed for the arena. On this other project, you already want to amend the new budget. Federal HUD money should not be for any mixed-use projects, like the Dome, the Wave, City Hall, Summer House. We shouldn't be looking to the state and the federal government. Sometimes it's 70%, and it's all air tax dollars. So when you ask for it from other places, grants and everything, it's air money. The state, under McCullough, as of last August, there was a $1.5 billion budget shortfall. The city has pretty much $3 billion since everybody went along with the new alternate, or the new budget, you know, which didn't get rid of any existing or the new debt. I don't know what exactly y'all are amending and moving around, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that mixed use is code word for HUD, and that includes the City Hall building. And I think that was Napolitano Jr., he's part of the venture group. And the Dome Wave project, the Wave doesn't work, only the Kelly Slater Wave actually works. That's for mixed-use condos there, too. Thank you.
That's all the speakers.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve and seconded. Is there
Yeah, I just want the viewing public, because someone might walk away with the wrong impression on these things, and sometimes I think it's important to say what it is. But this was a community development block grant. It's not mixed use, it's specifically for housing. There was home investment partnership, which also deals with some veteran housing, housing vouchers for veterans. This is all about direct housing that in the final throes of the budget amendment that took place, bipartisan budget agreement in May of, well, this was last year now, and put more money into this account. So this is all direct stuff going into, there's no mixed use, there's no dome site, this is people needing housing, and that's all it is.
Anybody else? Vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the resolution.
Next item is item 8, which is resolution to authorize the issuance by the Virginia Beach Development Authority of revenue and refunded bonds not to exceed $36 million rate loan to Virginia Wesleyan University. The city shall not have any payment obligation. Any speaker?
Barbara Messner.
Be nice, Mr. Moss, if you would ask the questions while I'm still standing instead of after I leave. And if your page was open, which you closed October 5th, 2016, we could ask you the questions online, because usually HUD, yes, y'all do some things that are good, but 9 times out of 10, the mixed use for HUD is going to private developers. I don't understand why the city of Virginia Beach is taking out a $36 million loan for a private school, Virginia Wesleyan. I don't think with their debt that we should be giving loans to any private entity. Our schools, we have a lot of problems with their schools. None of our children should be in portable classrooms, and the school buses shouldn't be late picking up our kids and dropping them off. You know, like I said, you know, we've given too many loans to private entities, and we have debt. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Right. I just think it's important that the public really knows what's happening here. There is no city debt being issued here at all. The Virginia Beach Development Authority, there's a lot of things we could talk about that, but not tonight, is a private state agency. It's the federal law and state law that has provided that as a conduit to authorize debt for special tax considerations, and the debt has no liability to the Virginia Beach Development Authority. It is just a vehicle to control what kind of debt that will qualify for certain financial tax considerations, and this is the vehicle, and it requires us to affirm, in effect, that the purpose for which the debt's being issued falls in compliance with state and federal law, and that's what we are, a certifying official as to content, not as to debt structure.
Vote is open.
Go ahead and close it. By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the resolution as submitted.
Next item is item 9, which is a resolution to direct the city attorney to file a petition for a writ of special election vacancy in Centerville District.
Barbara Messner.
You missed another opportunity to directly speak to me, Mr. Moss. I'm very familiar with the Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority, because I had this discussion with Will Sessoms when he was here, and he said not one dime of their money, not one dime, would be going to the arena project. In the beginning, you said none of their money. The Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority is funded with air tax dollars. City Council appoints the Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority. If anyone has looked at, you know, Beth Allen's Facebook page, she's connected a lot of dots with the conflicts of interest. So I do know what I'm talking about, and I resent you acting like I don't after I sit down. Thank you. And on the special elections, I think they should be held on November 6th. I don't understand how this council body should be able to appoint council members of their choosing. And I think, like I said, all the special elections should be on November 6th. And speaking of the elections and funding, campaign financing, I'm not sure if anyone here is willing to answer my questions. We don't really seem to have many people that are helpful to the residents. If someone like Mr. Jones, who accepts donations from the town center developers for his campaigns, if he donates that money to someone else, which he's done in the past, I'm just curious if that would be considered a conflict, since sometimes he abstains on things because of his ties with the developers. Thank you.
Barbara, before you sit down, Barbara, Ms. Messner, this election is in November. There is no other, it's November 6th.
Okay, you know, I was just told by the voter registrar's office that y'all would make the decision on when the election was between, I think it was June or July 17th and September, so I just wanted to make sure, because that's what I was told by I do try to make phone calls. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor, move approval. Second.
Motion's been made and second to approve. Any further discussion? If not, vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you've approved the resolution for the writ of special election.
Next item is item 14, which is ordinance to transfer $152,672 within the fiscal year 2017-18 Convention and Visitors Bureau operating budget rate purchase of 2 shuttles for the Sports Center.
Barbara Messner.
Good evening. Except for Atlantic Avenue closing, that the residents, 300,000 registered voters and 460,000 people, they don't come here anymore. They know their voices aren't heard, and I don't really like coming, but this is transferring, and as far as funding, the Convention and Visitors Bureau is funded by the city, and we're transferring $152,000 of their money to purchase more of those trolleys. I don't know if any of y'all have ridden them or seen them. They look like army tanks, giant, heavy tanks. I'm sure they take a lot of gas. And Mr. Dyer, I still have your candidate questionnaire where you said you weren't in favor of the trolley lanes, that they weren't successful and they caused problems. I think that was 2002 or 2004. These are strictly for tourists. They run empty all the time. I've been down at the oceanfront lately. They cost a fortune, and they get to drive in 2 of the 4 lanes on Atlantic Avenue. We already have major gridlock down there. And it is their money, and I think there's already 14 trolleys that you've bought, so I'm opposed to, moving the money and buying more trolleys, because you're sending them to, potentially to Town Center, you're sending them to Shore Drive, and it would be nice if there was transportation to the Military Aviation Museum, but all of this is for tourism. I don't approve. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
That's all the speakers, sir.
May I have a motion?
I'd move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to approve. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm not voting for this item, and I'm going to, not for the reasons Ms. Messner would suggest, but we just adopted the budget just a couple weeks ago, and we did approve, it's in there for the field house, is in there. In fact, I think it's $55 million of the debt, if my memory serves me correctly. It starts construction sometime next year. It will take possibly maybe about 1.5 years, 18 months, probably in that ballpark, somewhere within a 24-month period to be delivered. I suspect these vehicles probably take a year to procure, I suspect, or maybe less. But the question is, why are we buying vehicles before the facility is even ready, but yet the justification is for a field house? So under any kind of good business practice, you would walk back from the operating opening date of the facility. You try to plan this back because it's cash flow, and cash flow is important. Everybody in the business knows you don't want to have idle capital. So if the real purpose is to be serving the field house and providing a shuttle service, the timing and the procurement should be just-in-time disbursement, just-in-time contracting, just-in-time expenditures, and it should be arriving maybe 30 days before the building. So to me, the reasoning here doesn't line up with good business decision-making. Secondly, we had to know when we were talking about the budget itself, we could have easily had this in the capital improvement program that we just adopted, because that was just 2 weeks ago, basically. We could have had a line item in here, because obviously there was a surplus in this account. So what's the sense of urgency to buy a vehicle and put the money in this fiscal year when it's not needed maybe for at least 18 months into the future Why are we buying it? This is not timing money. Well, I'm not interested in people's other explanations. This is what we got. All I'm telling you, as a matter of public record, this is the explanation we received. Now, you figure the average home pays about $3,000 in taxes, maybe. Well, that's quite a few homes. I realize this is tip money, so it comes from tourism, but the business case, the analysis that we receive, just one page, doesn't justify the decision we're being asked to make. And this is what I got Friday at my home. I'm voting no.
Well, if we could have Mr. Van Domelen come in and explain the need for that, if you don't mind, Mr. Van Domelen.
Well, I had a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Ms. Messner, there's confusion. The request for the transfer of these shuttles is not the same thing as the trolleys, just for clarification. As far as the timing is concerned, Mr. Moss, when the sports center construction begins, it's going to remove about 40% of the current parking capacity of the convention center. With the expansion of the parking towards Bird Neck, with the plan to extend the surface parking towards Bird Neck, we'll have a significant distance for people to walk from that remote parking to the convention center event. So the shuttles are to be used during the construction process as well, not just once the facility is open, but to be used during the construction process to help transport customers from remote areas of the parking lot to the convention center.
Is that the same distance that residents walk in reverse when they park for free at the resort and walk to the beach?
Depends on where they park, I suppose, but I think it'd be actually a further distance.
And we didn't know that when we were doing the CIP that this wasn't an issue and that didn't get identified?
These, the funds for this particular shuttle program have been in the budget for the last couple of years in anticipation of needs with the arena project. The funds were budgeted under a different object code. They were budgeted under a contractual object code instead of a capital object code because they were part of a package that included other things for the arena project. So the request is now just to be able to move those funds from one object code to another object code in order to make the purchase.
Did we do a business cost analysis to tell us that going organically and doing it with city employees was cheaper life cycle costs than continuing the contractual obligation we considered earlier?
I'm not sure I'm understanding that question.
If I'm going to bring something organically from a contractual relationship, which you said was the legacy approach, right? You said contractually, because this is a different procurement code, right? We were previously going to contract for this service, right?
This was, from my understanding, this was put in the budget before I arrived here. So this is an issue that's been in the budget for a number of years. But my understanding is the intent was always to purchase these shuttles to be able to provide the transportation for people coming to the convention complex during arena construction.
So we don't know if a contractual approach would be a life cycle cost cheaper than if we did it organically.
No, I don't believe that to contract for the service on an ongoing basis would be more efficient than purchasing these shuttles.
But
no.
a business case analysis was not conducted to that effect.
Not in this particular issue, no.
Ms. Henley?
Well, you've partially answered my question because the wording in what we have just indicates that these shuttles would be taking people from the remote parking to the sports center, but it would also be to the convention center.
It would also be the
Serves the
convention center. It would also support other operational needs that we have within the Convention and Visitors Bureau operations. We are contracting for shuttles on a regular basis for a variety of purposes, so these shuttles will also support the operation in many other areas.
So they'll just be operating out there in the parking area and will make, I'm assuming, a particular route, and people will be able to go to whichever location, destination they need to when they are parked so far away that they
That is the
have a
purpose,
difficult
yes.
time
Yes,
walking.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to note that when we actually located the convention center where we did, that we recognized that there was always going to be a continuing need for transportation to that facility, and we've done an awful lot of things in the past to address that, including a lot of contract with other bus services to do that. But in terms of our sales team at the convention center, I think Brad would back me up on this, is that they really need to be nimble in terms of identifying with these potential groups that are coming in that have opportunities to be going to other localities in terms of being able to handle at least some of those needs in-house. And I think that this particular purchase gives us a lot of those opportunities that we don't currently have. And that's why I made the motion.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
You already have the motion and second on the
Motion and
floor.
second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Vote is open.
By a vote of 8 to 2, you have approved the ordinance to transfer the funds within the CVB's budget.
All right.
I won't say all that.
We will now go to item K4, which is ordinances for a short-term rentals, which was deferred from March 20th, 2018. Madam Clerk?
The first speaker is Jean Davis. And after Ms. Davis is Andrew Roper.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for listening to me this evening. My name is Jean Davis and I live in Sandbridge. And I kind of feel like we're having a family, excuse me, reunion. I talked to a majority of you in November 17th, 2015 about this same topic. In fact, a lot of my neighbors, business owners, we were all here. We packed the room and we also packed the hallway. We provided 56 handwritten signatures, over 1,000 petition signed stating we wanted to keep the rentals in Sandbridge. We didn't want these new regulations. We have regulations on the books. We have rules on the books. Some of these new regulations are ridiculous. Some of them you can't even really enforce. So I'm asking you again, on our reunion anniversary, let's go by the rules that we have on the books. We also had 24 people that came up and spoke and said, we love Sandbridge, we love the rentals the way they are, let's go by the rules. And since then, let's see, we've had the beach and waterways, whatever their evaluation was. Then we had an ad hoc committee. Then we had the planning commission. How much are we gonna kick this around, okay? I almost feel like this is the teenage mentality in that, well, if you can't get what you want from your folks, just keep asking and wear them down. I also believe that the majority should rule. I know there are some members in Sandbridge who do not want rentals. In fact, they claim they want the rentals, but they just want all these ridiculous rules. Sandbridge has pretty much always been a vacation community. Even the people that moved there in the 60s knew better. And you know, if you don't like the heat, then move out of the desert. It's plain and simple. I also want to remind you, I know when I was in school and I took a class, it's we, the people, and the government. Thank you.
Andrew Roper. Andrew Roper. Elaine Paquette. Elaine Paquette. I'm sorry, thank you. I probably said her name already. Did not.
Good evening. I'm back again. As Jean was saying, we keep coming and talking about rentals in Sandbridge. And again, I have promised my family not to mention where I think the exit sign should be placed. So we're going to talk about you and your issues right now. Everyone keeps looking at this like it's one ginormous jigsaw puzzle. And if you keep twisting this issue and adding the wording to this one and piling on a few more pieces and come back and twist it again and turn them around next month, you're going to have one big solution, and you're not. How many years has it been that Jean was just talking about this? At your last workshop, the city staff presented conditions upon which we believe there is consensus. And what do my wondering eyes but behold? A different consensus from the previous workshop. One rental per week instead of 2, owner to be on site rather than to be called within 30 minutes. Is this before or after Nemo Parkway? Because you know you can't get to Sandbridge in 30 minutes from Lagomar. Who directed the staff to change the consensus from the previous workshop? I keep hearing no one wants to do away with short-term rentals. It's semantics at this point. Some of these restrictions will cause a decline in rentals in Sandbridge, period. 1 rental per week, we already do 1 rental per week in the summer. It's the fall, the shoulder months that are at issue. You make the choices that affect our lives and hopefully for the better. But unfortunately, at this point, Councilwoman Henley's choice was to represent her family and a few select residents than the overwhelming majority of her district's constituents. Your only response to the majority of us has been, nobody asked you to rent your homes. Initially, the problem was identified as event houses, but now you're going for broke and hitting all of us. Are my 4-night rentals your problem? No, absolutely not. But even after cooler heads prevailed at the state level, you continued to dig in deeper and push for more restrictions. One has to wonder what the motive is and what's coming next. Are event homes a problem? Sure, they can be a problem. But just because your relatives and friends live across from them does not mean the solution is to restrict all of our rentals. Let's be practical, not vindictive. Don't send 4 unmarked police cars to Sandbridge on Friday morning of Memorial Day weekend to check on the owners and not Friday evening to check on the renters. Ask what is the problem you are responsible for addressing and what is the driving force behind it. Don't rely on anecdotal information regarding Sandbridge. It's not the Sodom and Gomorrah everyone keeps saying it is. Do your solutions actually solve the problem? How would you identify them? How would you enforce it? For those of us who live in our houses when they're not rented, please clarify. Do I put a green porch light on when I'm there and a red porch light on when the tourists are there? Because knocking on my door at 11 to do a head count is just not going to happen. Even some of the simpler ones you've come up with, like the 10 o'clock, after 10 o'clock, no amplified noise. Think about that. Does that mean my neighbor can do it because she's not renting? Just the renters can't do it? Don't we already have a noise ordinance?
Your time's up, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Donna Watson. And after Miss Watson is Lawrence Horvath.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Donna Watson, and I am one of the co-chairs of Protect Virginia Beach Neighborhoods. Several of us were out for lunch last month and ran into Phil Kellum. He was nice enough to speak to us and ask that we share what we would like to see in an ordinance. I've made copies of our response, which I will provide to the clerk. At the City Council workshop, I was very disappointed to hear several of you recommend 2 rentals in a 7-day period for houses in residentially zoned communities. It came across very strongly that you are more concerned with propping up commercial businesses in residential neighborhoods than you are with the people who actually live in these neighborhoods. Ms. Abbott, I read your comments regarding the Atlantic Avenue proposal. Your logic should be no different when considering short-term rental ordinances. I encourage all of you to consider Ms. Abbott's points as they would apply to short-term rentals. 1, do short-term rentals offer any benefit to improving the quality of life in for Virginia Beach residents? 2, is it good policy to enact ordinances that benefit private or out-of-state investors? 3, is Virginia Beach trying too hard to be a year-round tourist destination and not thinking about the year-round residents? I'm sure that you all saw the letter to the editor in the paper last Friday regarding short-term regulations. The property owner has a right to his opinion. However, it should be noted that this property owner lives in Annapolis, Maryland, and does not have to experience living with short-term rentals year-round. Since you're going to defer the action on this matter, I strongly encourage you to think about what you're doing to the people who live, work, and vote here. Please give careful consideration to the following. 311 needs to be fully implemented. Currently, 311 operators have no idea how to address issues with short-term rentals. We don't want to frustrate these workers and stress our already thin pool of 311 operators. Allow only 1 rental contract in a 7-day period. In your discussions, it came across that many of you feel that this is too hard to enforce. There will always be bad players. However, if you set the rules, most decent people will live by the rules. They just need to know the rules. Think about safety, 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 safety. If the real estate industry and most other jurisdictions that we could find feel that the maximum occupancy should be 2 people per bedroom, why are we even thinking about 3 people per bedroom? Good, decent people will follow the rules. Realty companies will advertise based on what is allowed. It's a good starting point. Is Virginia Beach's new marketing campaign going to be Virginia Beach is for lover, Virginia's for lover, Virginia Beach is for threesomes? I certainly hope that's not going to be our new motto. In your deliberations, please be thoughtful and think about the people who live in Virginia Beach. It is your responsibility to provide for the health, safety, and ensure the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of our homes. It's not council's responsibility to ensure that investors are guaranteed a profit or income. Thank you very much.
Lawrence Horvath. Thank you very much. And after Mr. Horvath will be Charlie Kelly.
My name is Larry Horvath. I'm here again to tell you on behalf of my neighbors in Bay Lake Pines that we don't want short-term rentals in our neighborhood. And I'm here for another purpose. I'm here, I think I've been remiss in the past. I want to tell you why we don't want them. They constitute an existential threat to our social bonds. We can't develop long-term relationships with people, different groups of people that are in and out every weekend. It's not something that can be done. We cherish our neighbors in our neighborhood. We enjoy living with each other. We've developed relationships over years that are comforting. When I return from a trip, I'm happy to see people that I know instead of a group of tenants that are there for the weekend that have nothing in common with me. The neighborhoods my wife and I have tried short-term rentals. The neighborhoods we've been in are sad places. There are no children playing in the streets. I mean, what parent would want their child playing in front of their house when the majority of homes are occupied by different groups of people, strangers, every weekend? Some of these neighborhoods that we've seen are really empty, sad places. We don't want that to happen to our neighborhood, and I don't think any of you who live in neighborhoods like we live in would want that to happen. I want to tell you also that the people who operate short-term rentals are less inclined to be social and concerned about their neighbors. A lot of them are willing to rent these houses out as businesses in what were once neighborhoods. We were told by one operator that if any of his neighbors asked who we were, to tell them that my wife and I were his aunt and uncle. So they know what they're doing, and they know it's less than up and up. Based on my daily walks, I'm retired, in Ocean Park and Chesapeake Beach, which are right next to my home, my neighborhood. The majority of people don't know that the City Council is currently considering allowing short-term rentals in their neighborhoods. And when I explain to them, they're pretty upset. And that's an anecdotal, but that's the perception that I get when I tell them what the city is considering allowing. I want to say that the idea that is being proposed about either prohibiting them in the majority of the areas that don't have a lot of short-term rentals or requiring conditional use permits is a good idea, but there need to be rules. Imagine having 3 occupants per bedroom in a 4-bedroom house plus 2. That's 14 people in a home that once had 6. Imagine all those strangers living next to you in different groups of those people every weekend. Where are they going to park? How are they going to comport themselves? It's not something that you really want to deal with on a daily basis. So, in conclusion, I want to ask you all to really give this some thought. I wanted to tell you why we don't want them, because I don't think that's been explained, and I hope I've added some clarity to the issue. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir.
Charlie Kelly. And after Mr. Kelly will be Sean Brown.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Charlie Kelly. I live in Sandbridge. I wanted to say that I was in favor of stronger regulations on event houses. The rental companies have implemented more restrictions on the size and frequency, and that has eliminated my concerns. I think they've done a great job, and if you look at any calls to police or other services, I'm sure you've seen a reduction in complaints. I am in favor of the occupancy limit of 3 per bedroom plus 2 per house. This number doesn't cause a hardship on existing rentals, and there's a significant percentage of houses that would have to reduce their capacity in Sandbridge to fit the 2 plus 4 that I've heard is being discussed. We also need to apply some business logic to the comment that if we allow 3 plus 2, that could mean in an area, a rural area like Pungo, that someone could build a 15 to 20 bedroom home, and we wouldn't want that. But I think we need to stop and say, yes, they could, but where's the business, what's the business proposition for that? Who is going to come to vacation in the middle of a rural area? They want to come to the beach, they want to be near the beach, and I think the vacation, the overlays that you've been looking at, I think what you said is the commonality is they're all near the ocean or the bay. So I don't think there's a fear, Barbara, about that people's going to put a big rental house in Pungo, so I think we're good there. As more than one, in terms of the size, even in Sandbridge, the supply and demand system is coming to fruition, because the bigger houses are not renting quite as strong since we've had more of them. So I think now the supply has caught up with the demand. There's only a certain demand for the huge house. And as someone said to me, I don't know 30 or 40 people that I'd like to spend a week with. So I think not everybody wants to do that. We've seen more houses that instead of being torn down, they're taking older homes and just renovating them, and done a nice thing. 2 doors down from me, a house that was 6 bedrooms, was renovated, and now is 7 bedrooms, but it was completely inside and out renovated. It was an old house that the widow that lived there couldn't keep it up. The roof was leaking, it looked like an eyesore, and now it's a very attractive home. It still has the same outer configuration. So in my opinion, the Planning Commission has done a great job, and I recommend that you send it back to them and let them do what you've tasked them with. Thank you.
Sean Brown.
Very nicely said.
I'd like to say good evening, city council members and women, and the mayor as well. I'm here to represent the short-term homeowners north of Sandbridge. I stand hand in hand with my brothers and sisters of Sandbridge that is doing short-term rentals, because I understand them completely in what they're accomplishing and the services that they're providing. I live on Lynn Haven and in Holland Road. It's a 3-bedroom townhouse. Most of my visitors, I do have visitors during the summer, but a lot of my visitors are the business traveler. I live near Oceana, so I have a lot of families that's visiting service members. It's a very close-knit community. It's very quiet. I did a news interview with Kim Chong from Channel 3, and I explained to her that if my neighbors were interviewed, that it would be interesting to hear after hearing what's going on with Sandbridge and their neighbors. And she said, you're absolutely correct. I spoke to my neighbors and asked them would they be willing to do an interview, And some of their comments astonished me, which were, if you hadn't told us that you were doing short-term rentals, we would never know. There is no parking issues. There is no noise issues. There is no complaints from my neighbors. So it kind of concerns me, why would we be overlooked or even or not be considered to the degree that Sandbridge would be, when we are have the same plans or same families of same business models of trying to pay our mortgage. So I would greatly ask you guys to consider north of Sandbridge and the short-term business owners that exist. I spoke to about 12 and explained about this meeting today. None of them wanted to come in today, but what I found was very interesting is that there is, I don't know if you ever heard of ghost hosting. Of course, we're all aware of situations in New York where, or in different places where Airbnb, short-term rentals are outlawed completely. There is, with the internet, you know, there's situations where people find ways of doing short-term rentals kind of under the radar.
Sir, there seems to be a problem with the light, but you're past your time, so.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry. And that's all the speakers, sir.
I'm sorry?
That's all the speakers.
That's all the speakers. All right. May I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move for that items K4, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G are deferred until July 3rd, which was the consensus of the council in the workshop.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to defer this item to July 3rd. Any discussion on the motion? If not, vote's open.
By a vote of 10-0, you've deferred the item until July 3rd.
All right, and now, before we move forward, I'm going to recess the council meeting for us to go into, go back into closed session after the open mic. But we have a young man sitting over here in a Boy Scout outfit, and I would like for him to come forward, if he would. Are there any other Boy Scouts here tonight? Hi, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay.
Good. Thank you for being here. Would you like to identify yourself?
I'm Michael Kelly.
Michael Kelly. Where do you go to school, Mike?
Salem Middle School.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for being here, and if you come over here for just a minute, I'll give you a pen that you can, of the city seal that you can put on your uniform.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now recess the formal session.